Some 50 years ago or so, I began my training in internal medicine. And as a part of that training, I had a mandatory 6-week rotation on the inpatient psychiatry ward. There, I learned how to drink coffee in earnest, sat around tables for patient care conferences, and was assigned one patient to follow for the 6 weeks, a 17-year-old girl named Nancy, who was a schizophrenic, who in responding to the voices she heard in the room would cut herself, slash her wrists and her arms, despite the nurse's every attempt at depriving her of the means for doing so. I went to see Nancy twice a day for 2 hours in the morning and then again 2 hours in the afternoon, and would sit and talk to her, mostly telling her about my family, about my little boy and how much he loved me to take him fishing, asking her about her own hopes and dreams, getting no response, and engaged in a very one-sided conversation, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. I can remember feeling sometimes that maybe we were getting somewhere, and then I would go back the next morning and find her in a tumble of sheets covered with blood, having cut herself. After the rotation ended, I'd go back and visit her, and she was still there, still on the locked ward, still listening to the voices, still slashing herself. And before I left the medical center, I stopped to say goodbye, and she had knitted some red mittens for my son, which she held out with her head down, as though she were embarrassed that this was too modest a gift. And then the 50 years passed, and they were like those of you have experienced as well or will experience, filled with excitement of medicine, of diagnosis, of treating disease, of the unfeeling bureaucracy, the uncaring administrators, and in the twilight of a career, the ever-present question of whether anything you had done had ever mattered, whether you had ever reached anyone, whether the students you were teaching were buying what you were selling. About several months ago, I was going to meet those students, and I stopped in the mailroom to pick up my mail, and in among the throwaways was a greeting card. I opened it up. There was a pencil drawing of a little boy holding up a fish. I opened the card, and it was from Nancy. And it read, "Dear Dr. LaCombe, many years ago when you were doing a rotation on the psych ward at the medical center, I was one of your patients. With much kindness and patience, you worked with me and befriended me. It is long overdue that I should thank you and tell you how well my life has turned out. I am a nurse in a busy family practice, working for a doctor much as I imagine you. I have an amazing husband of 31 years and 3 wonderful kids, none crazy. There were bumps along life's path, optic neuritis and retinopathy from Mellaril, later miscarriages, but only bumps. And I thank God for your having found me. Many, many thanks to you for being a kind-hearted one on my path. I will never forget. I saw this card a long time ago and saved it and thought of you fishing with your son. I hope life has been good to you and yours. You deserve to be encouraged for being you when a crazy, cutting teenager needed a friend. God bless, Nancy." I went out into the hall, and I just slumped against the wall of the corridor, and I must have had tears in my eyes because one of the housekeepers came up to me and said, "Dr. LaCombe, are you okay?" And I said, yes, I'm very okay. Thank you.